Get ready to dive into a world of nightmares and spine-chilling terror. From survival horror classics to psychological thrillers, these games will keep you on edge. Today, we're counting down the top 30 horror games that every fan of the genre needs to experience. Alternate Watch, an indie horror game where you wield a mysterious watch that lets you manipulate time. As you navigate dark, atmospheric environments, you'll solve puzzles and face eerie encounters. The game unfolds its haunting story through environmental clues, immersing you in a chilling narrative filled with surreal visuals. With multiple paths based on your choices, Alternate Watch offers replayability and a unique twist on horror gameplay. Next, set 15 years after the events of the original Alien film, you play as Amanda Ripley, searching for her mother aboard a space station called Sevastopol. The AI-driven xenomorph hunts you down in unpredictable ways, making each encounter unique. The real tension in Alien Isolation comes from the eerie sound design and the constant fear of being caught off guard. Embark on a nightmarish journey into the mind of protagonist Sebastian Castellanos in The Evil Within. He must save his daughter in a terrifying simulation world called STEM. The open-world elements make exploration both thrilling and dangerous, with grotesque imagery and disturbing enemy designs, such as the multi-limbed Guardian. The fear factor is amplified. Players must manage resources, craft supplies, and choose between combat and stealth, making each decision feel like a life-or-death moment. Imagine exploring the twisted mind of a painter who has lost his sanity. Layers of Fear is a psychological horror that thrives on environmental storytelling. Every room in the house offers a glimpse into the painter's troubled psyche, playing tricks on your perception of reality. Rooms shift and warp behind your back, creating unease and disorientation. It's less about jump scares and more about disturbing, surreal visuals that make you question what's real. From the creators of Amnesia: The Dark Descent, Soma is a deep dive into philosophical horror. Set in an underwater research facility, it explores themes of consciousness, identity, and what it means to be human. While dodging monstrous creatures, players face moral dilemmas that challenge their understanding of existence. The fear in Soma arises from its existential questions and suffocating atmosphere, where every shadow and noise could mean your demise. This next game revolutionized horror gaming with its emphasis on helplessness. Without weapons to defend yourself, you must avoid monsters lurking in the dark while managing your sanity. Staying in the dark too long increases your fear, while light provides comfort but may attract enemies. The eerie 19th century castle setting and creepy sound design immerse players in a constant state of dread. Fear builds not through combat, but through evasion, making it one of the most intense horror experiences. The Dead Space remake takes the 2008 classic to a whole new level with modernized graphics, improved controls, and enhanced sound design. You play as Isaac Clarke, an engineer aboard the USG Ishimura, a mining ship infested with necromorphs, grotesque reanimated corpses. The game is renowned for its brutal dismemberment mechanics, where strategic removal of limbs is essential to survival. The oppressive atmosphere of the abandoned ship, combined with its creepy industrial sounds and terrifying enemies, makes it a standout in the horror genre. Set in a haunted house, Visage uses slow pacing and subtle psychological horror to instill fear. You explore a seemingly normal home, but as the story unfolds, you encounter dark entities that manipulate reality. Heavily inspired by PT, it employs an oppressive atmosphere, minimal hand-holding, and disturbing imagery to make players feel uneasy at every step. The lack of traditional jump scares enhances its psychological impact, making it a truly terrifying experience. Armed only with a night vision camera, you play as an investigative journalist trapped in an abandoned mental asylum filled with deranged patients. The night vision mechanic amplifies the horror. You're constantly scavenging for batteries, and when the lights go out, you're plunged into terrifying darkness. The game's pacing, coupled with its grotesque enemies and relentless chase sequences, keeps your heart racing from start to finish. Resident Evil 2 Remake is a near-perfect reimagining of the 1998 classic. Set in the Raccoon City Police Department, you take on the roles of Leon Kennedy and Claire Redfield as they try to survive the zombie outbreak. The updated graphics, atmospheric lighting, and sound design breathe new life into the game, while the revamped third-person camera makes it feel fresh. Mr. X, the indestructible tyrant, stalks you relentlessly, and the game's resource management forces you to make every shot count. A horror game that plays like a movie, Until Dawn, is all about the choices you make. With multiple possible outcomes, your decisions determine who lives and who dies in a classic teen slasher scenario set in a remote mountain lodge. The game's branching narrative and impressive motion capture performances create an immersive, cinematic experience. It mixes psychological horror with creature feature vibes, keeping you guessing about who or what is hunting the group. Little Nightmares, an eerie platformer that puts you in the shoes of Six, a tiny character trying to escape the Maw, a horrifying ship filled with grotesque, nightmarish creatures. The game's art style is dark and unsettling, with exaggerated characters and grim environments that evoke a sense of childhood fear. Little Nightmares thrives on its oppressive atmosphere and disturbing visuals rather than traditional scares, making it a hauntingly beautiful horror experience. As a mortuary assistant, your job is to embalm bodies and prepare them for burial. But strange, demonic occurrences begin to manifest during your shifts in the Mortuary Assistant. The cold, sterile setting of the mortuary is terrifying enough, but the game excels by introducing supernatural elements like possession and demonic forces. Each session is randomized, ensuring that no two playthroughs are alike. The constant tension comes from unsettling, unpredictable hauntings that can happen at any moment. Taking a first-person approach, Resident Evil 7 returns to the series' survival horror roots. You play as Ethan Winters, a man searching for his missing wife in a derelict plantation house occupied by the grotesque Baker family. The first-person perspective makes the horror feel more personal as you experience every jump scare and tense moment up close. The house itself is filled with traps, puzzles, and hidden horrors, making every corner a potential death trap. Based on the iconic horror film, Blair Witch is a psychological thriller set in the creepy Black Hills forest. As you search for a missing boy, you encounter supernatural forces that mess with your perception of time and space. The game uses clever environmental design and psychological elements to keep you on edge, combining found-footage-style horror with a gripping story. Your companion, a dog named Bullet, adds a unique dynamic to the gameplay, as his behavior often hints at danger. The long-awaited sequel to Alan Wake dives even deeper into the psychological horror genre, combining intense survival gameplay with a narrative that blurs the line between reality and fiction. You once again take on the role of Alan, a writer trapped in a dark, twisted world of his own creation. The game introduces more supernatural threats, terrifying environments, and puzzles that challenge your wits. The eerie Pacific Northwest setting and the creeping dread make Alan Wake 2 a masterclass in atmospheric storytelling. Imagine surviving a plane crash, only to end up stranded on an island teeming with cannibalistic mutants. The Forest merges survival gameplay with horror as you gather resources, build shelter, and fight off increasingly aggressive enemies. What sets this game apart is the AI of the cannibals. They'll watch you from the trees, plan attacks, and even retreat if overwhelmed. The fear comes from not knowing when or where they'll strike, and the island's dark caves hide even more terrifying creatures. Set during the Iraq War, House of Ashes takes a unique spin on the horror genre by plunging soldiers and archaeologists into an ancient underground temple filled with demonic creatures. Part of the Dark Pictures anthology, this game plays like an interactive movie where your choices determine who survives. The blend of supernatural horror and military tension, along with impressive visuals and branching storylines, makes each playthrough feel distinct and engaging. The Medium introduces a unique dual reality mechanic where you navigate both the physical world and the spirit realm simultaneously. You play as Marianne, a psychic medium investigating a haunted hotel, solving puzzles, and uncovering disturbing secrets. The game's art design, inspired by Polish surrealist artist Zdzisław Beksański, creates an unsettling atmosphere. As you switch between realms, you encounter otherworldly creatures and face mind-bending psychological horror, while the narrative tackles deep, emotional themes. Developed by the creator of Dead Space, the Callisto Protocol is a spiritual successor set on a prison colony on Jupiter's moon. You play as Jacob Lee, trying to survive against horrifying creatures known as biophages. The game excels at creating an intense, claustrophobic atmosphere with brutal combat mechanics and grotesque body horror. The creatures are relentless, and the prison setting feels oppressive, much like the Ishimura in Dead Space. It's a visceral, terrifying experience for fans of survival horror. Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice explores the psychological horror of mental illness as much as it does supernatural terror. You play as Senua, a warrior on a journey to the underworld to rescue the soul of her dead lover. The game's depiction of psychosis, auditory hallucinations, and paranoia are both immersive and terrifying. The whispers in Senua's head, the distorted visuals, and the emotionally charged narrative make Hellblade a unique and haunting experience. Its blend of Norse mythology and psychological horror sets it apart from other games in the genre. Phasmophobia. This game lets you and your friends investigate haunted locations to identify the type of ghost lurking there. With voice recognition technology, the ghost can hear you talking in real life, adding an immersive and terrifying element. Each mission feels like a high-stakes paranormal investigation, where teamwork is key, but fear is ever present. With new updates and ghost types constantly being added, Phasmophobia keeps the scares fresh and unpredictable. The 8th installment in the series, Resident Evil Village, takes players to a remote, Gothic European village overrun by terrifying creatures. You once again take on the role of Ethan Winters, fighting through a variety of enemy types, including werewolves, vampires, and even a haunted dollhouse. The game blends action and horror with iconic boss fights and immersive world building. Its chilling environments, from dark forests to creepy castles, create a constant sense of dread, while its mix of fast-paced combat keeps you on edge. A multiplayer horror game that blends teamwork and fear in procedurally generated environments. Players must work together to explore abandoned industrial complexes, collecting items while avoiding terrifying creatures. What makes this game special is the balance between horror and chaotic humor. Working with your team is essential, but every mistake could turn into a terrifying disaster. The randomly generated levels keep things fresh, ensuring no two missions feel the same. In Observer, you take on the role of a neural detective named Daniel Lazarski, played by Rutger Hauer, in a cyberpunk future. As an observer, your job is to hack into the minds of criminals and victims to solve cases, but what you find there is often nightmarish. The game blends psychological horror with a futuristic dystopian setting, using distorted environments and unsettling imagery to create a deeply immersive experience. The horrors you encounter are not just physical, but mental, as you unravel a dark, existential mystery. A survival horror game set in a mysterious, eerie forest filled with supernatural elements and grotesque creatures. Players navigate the dark environment from a top-down perspective, gathering resources and crafting items to survive. The game features a dynamic day-night cycle, where players explore during the day, but must retreat to their hideout at night to fend off increasingly aggressive enemies. Stealth and strategy are emphasized over direct combat, with an unsettling atmosphere created by hand-drawn graphics and haunting sound design. These horror games are sure to keep you awake at night, whether it's the relentless fear of being hunted or the psychological torment that stays with you long after you stop playing. Which one of these games gave you nightmares? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more terrifying gaming content. Thanks for watching.